Hello, welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'd like to talk to you about how to restore a lavender plant which has started to go a bit leggy and quite patchy in places. So lavender plants don't actually live very long, they're quite short-lived plants. You'll only probably have about 10 to 20 years maximum with them. You can keep them growing a bit longer if you do regular pruning, but if you don't prune them regular or if they're getting quite old, what tends to happen is you get very leggy or you get a lot of these kind of dead patches starting to appear. Now this one doesn't look too bad from the angle where the camera is, but there's quite a lot of dead starting to appear in here, a lot of patches. So what I need to do is something to restore this plant. So when lavender flowers, it puts a huge amount of growth and effort into those flowers. Instead of producing leaves, what it does in the middle of summer is it switches to flower production. What happens then is it produces very long stalks, some of them up to 1 meter in length, depending on the variety of the lavender. That's a huge amount of energy it's putting into that, and it's not putting any more growth into any more shoots or any more leaves. So that does weaken the plant quite a bit. Now, normally that's not a problem, but if it's a weak plant already, or if you've got patchy areas, it's just going to get worse and worse. So what you actually want to do is give this a light prune in early summer. So now it's actually March time. This is just to show you before the growth starts to appear, what it looks like. So what I'll be doing is once it does grow a little bit, I'm going to give it a light prune. What it will do in early summer is it's going to grow a lot of new growth, not from the dead areas, unfortunately, but new growth from these areas. What I'll then do is I'll go over it and prune it. That will stop it from flowering, and I'll keep pruning it every few weeks to keep it bushing up. And what it will basically do is it will do something similar to what a hedge does. So with hedges, you have gaps in hedges, or if it's a new hedge and it's not fully knitted together, you'll have a lot of gaps. When you prune it, what it does is it encourages branches to come out in the other directions and it to bush up from lower down and encourage a lot more new shoots, and that will fill in the patches in the hedge. So you want to do that with the lavender, but instead of doing it that yearly cut, you want to do it several times in the summer, probably once a month as it's growing. That will stop it from flowering, encourage lots of leaves, lots of side branches, and it will start to thicken up those areas. So what I'll do now is I'll see you in the summertime. We'll see how this is looking. It should look slightly improved because it will be growing a little bit of new growth. And then once I give it a few prunes, we'll see a big difference by the end of the summer. So it's now a few months later, it's the beginning of May, and as you can see, the lavender plant is looking much better. This is what you'd expect from your plant. Although it's looking quite shabby over the winter, it will then start to green up. But the places that are dead are going to stay dead, so you can see a few here. These haven't recovered. And what it's going to do now is going to put on lots of these long shoots. These long shoots are going to come up and become flowering shoots. And although it looks great now, it's going to keep growing those really long shoots, and it's not going to grow any more side shoots or any more leaves lower down. It's just going to grow that very tall flowering shoot from now on. So what we want to do is give this a gentle trim. That will cut off all those flowering shoots. This will force it to grow more leaves, more side shoots, and it will start to green up more around the dead areas. So this won't encourage the dead areas to come back to life, but what it will do is it will make any of the weaker areas a little bit stronger, and it will also cause lots of side branching, which will help branch sideways and start to fill in those dead areas. So when I cut this, it will look worse at first. The reason being is because the angle you're looking at it from, if you look from above, you can see it's actually quite bare in places, but the angle you're looking at it from, this is blocking the view of the dead material, the taller growth. When that cuts low again, you'll be able to see the dead growth from behind. So it will look worse when you first do it, but in the long run, this will help green it up massively. And I can see a few areas are quite uneven as well. So we've got some areas with, like this area here, there's lots of long, lush growth, and it's growing very healthily. There's other areas like here where the growth is a bit more yellow and it's a bit weaker, and this is really struggling. So if this was allowed to flower, all that energy would go into flowering and it would weaken the plant. So if we cut this back, stop flowering, that will strengthen it, and then hopefully next year the whole lot will be a lot stronger and a lot healthier. So I'm just going to go over now with my hedge cutter, just going to give it a gentle cut all over, just cutting back to roughly where it was growing from previously, and that will encourage lots of side branching. So that's all the flowering shoots now trimmed off. What you will find is sometimes you have shoots that grow from much lower down, and those ones you haven't cut off, so they will start flowering. If you see them starting to flower in a few days or a few weeks time, just go in with secateurs or a hedge trimmer and just trim them off as well. You basically want to stop any flowering because you want all the energy to go into new leaves and shoots and not flowers. So that's it for this part of the video. I will see you guys in a few months time, probably the middle of summer. We'll see how it's looking. It should be greening up a lot again. We'll probably try and flower a second time, and then we'll hit it again with the hedge trimmer, stop it from flowering, and just continue the process throughout the summer. Regular pruning to get this to green up and to bush out again. So it's now a few weeks later, and as you can see, we've had quite a bit of growth already. And this growth that you can see here is the flowers that I missed previously. So as I said before, when I was cutting it, some bits were a bit lower. I didn't manage to cut them and they've come up and flowered. So what I need to do now is go over and trim it again to make sure that stays short and it doesn't go into flowering. But what I'll do now is I'll show you a close-up and I'll show you the difference between the bits that have gone to flower and the bits that have been pruned and how much they're starting to bush up and recover. So looking at this area here, we can see there's a couple of bits at the back here which haven't been cut, but these bits here have been cut. What you will notice is the one at the back has just a single straight stem. There are some leaves showing from lower down, and these are the ones that could become shoots if they were to be cut here, but they're going to stay dormant because all the energy is going to go into flowering. But you can see the ones that have been cut here, there's lots and lots of fresh new shoots coming up, and I'll just single one out here at the back so you can see it better. You can see basically everywhere there's leaves, there's lots of new shoots coming out, so it's really getting nice and bushy and it's starting to bush up, whereas these ones are still going to be quite leggy and it's not going to bush up. So at this stage now, what I want to do is cut off all the flowering stems that I've missed. Also, it's good to give this a light cut. Any of these new shoots that come up, if I trim them again, what's going to happen is it'll just encourage further bushing and it'll just help this plant to fill in and become much thicker and bushier. So that's the lavender now all trimmed. So I'll be not doing too many more regular updates on this. I'll just wait until the end of the season. But basically what I'll be doing for the rest of the season is just the same thing. Every time I see long leggy growth from the flowers, cut it off. Every time it starts to look a little bit like there's fresh growth coming through, trim that as well. The more regularly you do it, the better finish you'll get. So I'm just going to do this throughout the summer and it'll fill in quite nicely, and so I'll have a great looking healthy lavender plant by the end of the summer. So it's now the end of the growing season, and as you can see, the lavender is looking in a much better shape than it was at the beginning of the video where it was springtime. So we've had a whole season of growth, and all I've been doing is, as I've said before, every time we get a little bit of growth or any sign of flowering, trim it off. That encourages the side branching and it thickens up the whole structure. So you can see here, most of this now is nicely filled in. So all the small gaps that were around here are now completely filled in, and the areas that were already quite healthy are really dense now and thick with growth. Now we do have a few smaller patches here. These were really large gaps originally, and these could take a year or two to fill in. But as you can see, these areas are also much smaller than they were in springtime. So all I need to do with this now is let it flower next summer, and it should put on a great display of flowering again, and this is going to really keep it in good condition now for a year or two. Now, if I am a bit worried about some of these slightly larger gaps, what I could do is let most of it flower, and just the places where there's still a few gaps, just trim around those areas to make sure that those areas thicken up. So that's all you need to do to restore your lavender plant. Basically, keep trimming it, stop the flowers from coming on it. That'll cause it to thicken up. If it's only a little bit patchy, it'll be just a couple of prunes, and by midsummer it should be looking really good, and you can let it flower in the autumn. Or if it's in a worse state like this one was, you might need to do a prune all season and it'll start looking good by the end of the summer. If it's in a really bad state, it could take a couple of years to get it back. Now, if you do regular pruning, this shouldn't be a major issue, but when lavenders get old, such as this one here, this one's about 20 years old or more, then it does start to get a bit patchy, and you just need a little bit of extra attention to bring it back to full health.